This is another episode of Standup Comedy, your host and MC, celebrating 40-plus years on the fringe of show business. Stories, interviews, and comedy sets from the famous and not so famous. Here's your host and MC, Scott Edwards.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fantastic episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC, and we have a real treat for you. You know, there's not a lot of great, terrific female comics out there, but I was able to wrangle one down that used to work for me a lot back in the day. Ladies and gentlemen, she's an Emmy award-winning, Golden Globe-nominated comedy writer. She's a stand-up comic, motivational speaker, and she was a writer for shows like Roseanne, Mad About You, Veronica's Closet, and you may have heard this, she was the head writer and producer of the #1 children's animated series, Rugrats. That's right, one of our favorites. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Monica Piper. Monica, we haven't had a chance to talk.
Wow, you have a lot of people in your house, Scott.
Well, we try to keep it exciting, and we're excited to have you on the phone today. You have had such a busy life. It has taken me several months to tie you down for this interview, so we sure appreciate it. Monica, you have had a really interesting and involved career the last 20 years. But I'd like to give the audience a basis going back maybe 30, 40 years. I don't know, 30 years. How did you end up in comedy?
Well, I was a high school English teacher before I was a comedian. Yes, I
didn't
was.
know that.
Yeah, I had to leave teaching, though I couldn't handle the money and prestige. But I did love those kids. But I felt like I was doing 5 sets a day with hecklers. And I thought, well, if I'm doing it here and getting laughs, maybe I could actually do it as a career. So I did. I was a singing waitress at a restaurant in the Valley in LA, and I would sit on the piano and sing the blues, and then I started talking in the middle of it, like a little talking blues, and I started writing jokes, and I would do them while I was singing, and then I said, wow, I think I have a decent 5 minutes. So I auditioned at the Comedy Store, 1980, and she made me a regular.
Mitzi Shore, right?
I panicked because I only had 5 minutes, and that weekend I had to do 20. So it was like, oh my God! But I don't know. I somehow did it, and that's where I met these great, funny ladies. You know, Diane Nichols, Carrie Snow, Sue Kalinsky, who's now one of my best friends, Nancy Parker, just so Lois Bromfeld, so many funny women.
You were working the belly room then, right?
I was working the belly room where they put the girls.
So let's explain to the audience that the Comedy Store, famous traditional stand-up comedy club, one of the first in the country, run by Mitzi Shore after she left New York, where Sammy Shore were running a few clubs. And she had the main room, which everybody has heard about. Every comic that's anybody has been on the main stage. But they had an upstairs annex called the belly room. And it was kind of famous because so many terrific female comics came out of there, and everybody you mentioned has worked for me. In fact, when you see
and Sandra Bernhardt as well.
Yeah.
But I know they have. Everyone loved going to your club.
Yeah, and when you see Sue next, tell her I said hi, and she should get on this podcast as well.
She does a great podcast herself.
Oh, cool.
With Steve Mason. It's called the Culture Podcast. And they have a lot of great guests.
Well, ladies and gentlemen,
anyway,
there's a plug. Susan Kalinsky. Check out her podcast.
Sue Kalinsky. She doesn't like being called Susan. But
well,
anyway.
You can tell we're close.
I will definitely tell her. I mean, we all have great memories of your club. Let me just see if we covered how I got into I never really thought seriously about comedy for a living until I started doing improv at the Holy City Zoo in San Francisco, and we'd go on after all the comics. So, and Robin Williams was in the improv group I was in. So, I mean, I was there watching Robin, Dana Carvey, just so many greats, and Paula Poundstone, just so many of the greats. And that's when I thought, well, maybe I could do this. Anyway.
What a great place to cut your teeth. I mean, the Holy City Zoo, we've explained it to our audience in the past, a really small, maybe 24-seat club that where Robin Williams kind of made it famous, but many, many, many terrific comics came out of there. And having that exposure. Now, you were saying you were writing material. You don't remember.
Jeremy Kramer came out of there, and I think I worked with him at your club.
Oh, yeah. Jeremy was a regular, kind of a strange guy, but always funny. Very San Francisco kind of act.
But hilarious.
Yeah.
And I think the week I worked with him, we also worked with Bob Saget.
Yeah,
So,
that would have been a great show. The producer must have been brilliant. So do you remember any of that early material? Was there a first joke or bit that really struck you and stuck with you those first couple of years in the 80s?
Oh, God, so many. I remember one that I did because I had somewhat recently gotten divorced. And you remember this bit? I used to say, I was married once. We're still good friends. And it's just our values were confused. I don't really like to dwell on it, but I happen to have the wedding announcement here with me. And then I would read perhaps this will share some insight as to what went wrong. And then I read, Mr. and Mrs. Peter Barron Jr. wish to announce the wedding of their son, Peter Barron III, a tall, extremely handsome, athletic, brilliant graduate of Harvard Law School, soon to open a private practice in San Francisco, to a tiny Jewish woman who smokes. Name furnished on request. So
that's the wedding announcement. Kind of set the standard for the marriage, right?
Oh yeah, and it's interesting because all those stories and my marriage, these are all included in the play that I wrote and did off Broadway for 200 performances.
Yeah,
called
Not That Jewish,
Not
right?
That Jewish.
Yeah, a really good play.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was one of my first jokes.
Well, that's very funny.
I think my first joke was my neighbor just got a new dog. Apparently his name is Get Off the Fucking Couch.
I remember that
which
bit.
I think lacks imagination because that's her husband's name too. So that was in my first 5 minutes at the Comedy Store.
I remember that bit. Now, that was one of the things that, I'm getting older. I don't have quite the memory. How did you come to work for me at Laughs? Did you showcase? Did you come up with someone?
I don't know. I was trying to think about that, and I don't know. I think maybe one of the headliners that you had recommended me to you.
I was definitely guided by some terrific talent. You mentioned Bob Saget, Dave Coulier, Shandling would recommend people to bring up. And I love bringing female comics up because sadly there weren't as many. I mean, there's probably one female comic for every 20 male comics or more.
Right. Well, it's different now. And we actually kind of laugh at the thought that because a female comic was considered such a novelty that the only, you'd always have two men and a female comic on a show. You never would have two females and a guy. The only time you'd have two or three females was if it was, hey, this week we got something really new and interesting, an all-female comedy show.
Yeah, and
then,
I was one of the guys that did that. I used to love bringing up Carrie Snow and Lois Bromfield, Lori Kilmartin, yourself. There was a whole slew that I enjoyed working with. Paula was one of my regulars when she first came out from Boston. So, I enjoy women. and working with women comics was always an extra treat. But back then, there weren't as many of you.
Novelty.
Yeah, it was a bit of a novelty. Now, speaking of novelties, that's a great segue into the one question that has to be answered. Ladies and gentlemen, Monica Piper, who has been successful as a television writer, producer, and comedian and motivational speaker, started off her comedy career with her real name, Maylee Davis.
Right.
So tell me, and I booked you as Maylee Davis for several years, and then all of a sudden it was Monica Piper, and we went with it because it's your right, you're the artist. But briefly, share with the audience what happened to Maylee Davis.
Well, I actually talk about this in my play too. I was born Maylee Davis and had a great future. And then there's a projection on the screen of an actual place called Maylee's Chinese Restaurant and Sushi. So it was like, because people always thought Maylee Davis was like a Chinese country western singer or something, people ask me all the time, are you Chinese? Are you Chinese? And now it's so funny. Now I think about it, and I like Maylee Davis. I actually think it's kind of a cute name. But at the time, I just felt that I needed to change it. And,
well, a lot of celebrities in Hollywood change their names, and it's really not that big a deal. But because I'd worked with you for so many years as Maylee, when you changed to Monica, and Monica Piper is a beautiful name as well, I didn't understand why. Now that you've explained it, it makes perfect sense. That
well,
people
it's not
would
even
think,
just that. People would say Maylee.
Mispronounce
one time, literally, it was on a marquee. Special guest Mary Lee Davis. It was like, it just, I don't know. And how I changed it is really interesting and true because I was literally I was on Santa Monica Pier, and I said, I want to change my name. And I looked up and I saw Monica Pier, and I just added a P and made it Monica Piper. But it really was based on Santa Monica Pier.
oh, that's interesting.
Well, it's not fascinating.
No, but I mean,
you must lead a very dull life.
Well,
But
I was
anyway.
just going to say though that when you spent your whole life growing up as Maylee, and where I was going to ask, where would you come up with Monica Piper, which is a great sounding Hollywood name, and coming from the Santa Monica Pier is a great story because
It's a true story. That's also in the play, and we have a photo of Santa Monica Pier, and then it suddenly becomes Santa Monica Piper. So,
well, great use and great story. Thanks for sharing. I've actually wondered all these decades, what happened to Maylee Davis? Did it upset your folks at all? Did they understand?
yeah, my father understood. Yeah. My mom had already passed
Oh, I'm sorry.
by the time I did that. Anyway.
Yeah, that's still interesting, and I appreciate you sharing that story. Now, before we go into how you've spent the last 20 years, when you worked at Laughs, you mentioned working with Saget and doing some others. Were there any good stories or comics that you worked with that made an impression?
A couple. Larry Miller, who I love, I worked a couple of times up there, I think, with Larry Miller, and he was hilarious. He would walk around the comedy. Your audience understands about the comedy condo?
They've heard it
not?
mentioned a few times by comics, yes.
Yeah, it's a comedy condo where all the comics are there. And Larry Miller got so very comfortable. He'd walk around in his boxer shorts. And if you know Larry Miller at all, it's, he's adorable, but maybe it's not the nicest sight I'd like to envision.
He's not an Adonis,
anyway.
right? He's like a normal middle-aged guy. And they've heard the name Larry Miller many times because I've worked with the best, and I still put Larry Miller near the top. One of the funniest guys I ever met. Yeah.
One of the funniest guys ever. And
of course, I haven't seen him in his boxers.
No, well, there's still time. I can send him a message if you want. But anyway, we were walking to the club, and I'm sure they all know the club was in Old Town in Sacramento, but there were those, not cobblestone. What were the streets? There were streets.
They were actually cobblestone streets and wooden sidewalks.
Yeah, wooden sidewalks. It was the wooden sidewalks, and there were slats in between the wood. And I wore high heels back then, and I was clumping along in my high heels, and my heel got stuck in one of the slats, and we literally couldn't get it out. Larry Miller had to. He lifted me out of my shoe, and then he had to try to get my shoe out of the slat without breaking it. And I think he was more nervous about breaking my shoe than he was about any gig he ever had to do in his life. But I remember that. Oh, and I remember working with Saget, who, of course, killed every night. He was hilarious. And there was one night when Robin Williams was doing a big show in Sacramento, whatever your big venue is there. He was doing that. And then he came over to the club.
Yeah, you were there that night, huh?
I was there that night.
That was amazing.
And it was amazing. But now, here's my question, because I remember that it was like mixed emotions for Bob Saget. Yeah, I mean, he was the headliner, and then Robin came up, and I think, tell me if I'm right, would this have happened? I think Robin dropped in and just didn't have a whole lot of time. No, Robin came back to the condo, didn't he?
Well, what happened was Robin had a concert at the Sacramento Convention Center Theater and done really well. But as he always does, he loves stand-up. That after a show, he did this twice at my club. He came by the room and he goes, "Hey, can I get on stage?" Well, nobody says no to Robin Williams. And even though Bob Saget is a great friend and a tremendous successful comic, at the time, Robin was then and still is the god of stand-up comedy.
Of course.
I said, "Hey, Bob, I'm going to cut your set short and bring on Robin." And Bob, of course, said, "Yeah, I'm the producer. It's my show." Robin went on and did it seemed like an hour of material for the audience. And then after the show, we all hung out for a little bit, but I heard you guys had gone back to the condo after the show. Bob never told me that his feelings were hurt, but it was definitely just business. Robin wants to go on. You want to share that with the audience.
Yeah. It's really always interesting because, no one has more fragile egos than comedians, and so I think it was kind of weird for Bob because he had to cut his set short, and he was killing. He always kills.
Yeah.
But
No, tremendous
then,
talent, good friend, and it was just one of those situations. And like I said, it did happen twice at my club, but twice in 21 years. It wasn't like, it was definitely an anomaly. And Bob hopefully sucked it up and moved on. I think he did,
oh, of
career
course
wise.
he did.
But yeah, no, you're right though. It's challenging to the other acts because Robin did this all over the country. He loved dropping
Right.
in. He loved stand up so much. And
Right.
it's hard to deny an audience an opportunity to see a superstar like Robin for free, basically.
Right.
And the audience just went nuts. Well, I didn't know you were there that night, but
Yeah, I
what a
was.
great story. And I know that you worked with Robin at the Holy City Zoo, but still by that point, he was such a huge name that just having him around energized everybody. Now, we've talked about your years at Laughs, but you've had such a successful career outside of that. You started working with...
Wait. I just want to tell you something that I just thought of
Sure.
before we talk about my successful career. You were asking how I got into comedy, and I actually remembered the first time I ever did a joke and people laughed, but I wasn't a comedian. I was in 10th grade, and Mr. Cooper, my math teacher, passed out papers and announced, today we're having a little pop quizzy. That's what he called them, quizzies. He said, today we're having a little pop quizzy. And I looked at it. Honest to God, this is true. I looked at it and said, wow, if these are your quizzies, I'd hate to see your testes. And everybody laughed except Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
And he actually wrote the joke out on a discipline report. And he wrote the joke out on a discipline report and sent it to the principal, who called my parents that night.
Oh, geez.
It was hilarious. And my father got, my father, the funniest man on the planet and the greatest guy, he's on the phone listening to this, and he goes, she said that? Well, I will certainly have a word with her. Thank you. Then he turns to me and says, kid, you're funny.
Well, that's great support by a few times by comics, is that there's that first adrenaline rush of hearing the acceptance in applause or laughter from a group of people.
It's like a drug. It's a drug.
Yeah, and it hooks you.
So great.
And that's an interesting story. 10th grade. I bet the classmates really enjoyed that.
Yeah, they did. They thought it was funny. But, I grew up in a home where you did not so much my father, because my father was hilarious and he was in show business himself, but when he was young. But my mother was like, you'll go to college, you'll have a career to fall back on, and then you can do your creative stuff. So I went to college and became a high school English teacher. And
well, I think we're all happy that you found your muse and were able to transfer over. I was about to say that in 1991, you started working with a very turned out to be one of the most popular cartoons, Rugrats.
Yes. Was it 91? Oh, my God. It was 91.
But you did that for several years, and you ended up producing a few?
I went back and forth. I got an overall writing deal at Klasky Chupo, which is the company that produced Rugrats, created it. That's where all the artists were and the writers. But I got an overall deal, so it wasn't just Rugrats. It was Rugrats. It was the Wild Thornberries. It was...
Well, you wrote for Mad About You in 92.
No, I wrote for Mad About You in 98, 97.
Oh, well, IDMB has it wrong then. Well, let's bring the audience back a little bit. Your actual first,
Okay.
one of your early TV experiences, you were actually on Star Search, right?
Oh God, yes. I was on Star Search and I lost to Sinbad. But
Well, that's not too bad a person to lose to. He's had some success.
right, but he was on his. You know how they on Star Search that everyone had these runs, like the winner would win 6 times in a row, and once that was going, they didn't want to ruin that. But anyway, but a lot of great comics didn't win Star Search.
Oh yeah, no, I've heard dozens, and this was early in your career. It was only I think 1985ish.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm sure you did a lot of the other TV shows, Evening at the Improv and stuff like that. But
I did all the.
but you really took off as a writer in the 90s, and that led to some producing. I mean, there's a whole list of shows you worked on. Is that because you fell in with one studio?
No, actually, I was working at Rugrats and the Wild Thornberrys. I was going back and forth between those two series. I was writing for them. But in the meantime, I wrote a spec script for Mad About You because I really loved the show and I knew those voices. I just knew Paul's voice so well, Paul Reiser. So I wrote a spec script, gave it to my agent, and my agent sent it to Mad About You. And the rule of thumb is you never send a spec script of that show to that show. In other words, if you want a job at Mad About You, you don't send them a Mad About You spec script. You send them anything else because they're highly judgmental about their own show, about people that attempt to write their own show.
Right.
But anyway, they liked it. They called me in for an interview and I got the job. So I left animation to go write on Mad About You. And then I had already written on Roseanne. And that came about. I was on the road. I had just had, my son had recently been born. He was 6 months old. And and I got a call from Roseanne. Hey, Monica, I heard about the baby. That's so cool. And I went, well, thanks, Roseanne. It's really anyway. She really didn't care about the baby. So she said, we need a strong female writer on the show. You want to be a writer on the show? And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, it's the #1 show in the country. I can get off the road. I can make good money. Sitcom money is so good. I can make good money. I can give my son a stable life. So where do I sign? And what she didn't say was, oh, and that cute baby of yours? Well, you're never, ever, ever going to see him again. Because they kept you there till 4 a.m.
Yeah, Lois Brownfield told me about, she was just, Roseanne's writing was kind of a slave chamber. They worked and worked and worked.
Yeah, you were there till 4 a.m. And that was crazy. Most people, it didn't, on the days you were there till 4 a.m, you didn't have to come in until noon. But I had a baby at home. And so suddenly I have a daytime nanny and a nighttime nanny. And I was so guilty. I felt, I was so torn. Here I am on the #1 show in the country, but I'm not seeing my child. And all the other writers that had kids had wives or husbands, but I was a single mother. And so it was, and I said to my agent, I said, this is I'm so torn because nothing is greater than when you pitch a joke and everyone laughs and you get it in the script. It's, it's a high, like getting a laugh at a club is a high. So it was very exhilarating being in a writer's room on a very hit show. But on the other hand, I wasn't seeing my kid, and I said to my agent, I think I have to leave. I can't do this to my child. And he said, you never you can't quit. You can get fired. That's no big deal, but you can't quit.
It's all about reputation.
I stuck out the season. And then I threw my kid in a suitcase and we went back on the road. I took him with me on the road.
Wow.
I don't think I worked for you when I had.
I think that was later in your career. But you also ended up doing some producing. You produced some shows for All Grown Up and Daddy's Girls. Is it hard to transition from writer to producer?
Well, no, because here's how it worked. After Mad About You, I went to Veronica's Closet, but when that was over, they called me from Klasky Csupo. The Rugrats people called me and asked me if I would come back and develop and run this new show called All Grown Up, which was Rugrats 9 years later. It was really a fun show. They were in middle school and they weren't babies, and it was fun.
Oh, what a great honor, too, that they would remember, how well you did in the early years of the Rugrats to bring you back for that. That's a great honor.
Really, it felt wonderful because, my son by that time was like 7, 8, 9, and he was really into sports, and I was a real sports mom, and I said, okay, if I keep writing on sitcoms, I'll never get to go to his games or anything. So animation was great because I could literally leave at 5:00 if I wanted, and I was running the show. So
yeah, it's good to be the boss, right? You could do that.
So that's when they made me also a producer. So I developed All Grown Up with with Kate Boudelier and Eric Casimiro. And now, I don't know if you know this, but Rugrats was rebooted and it's brand new. It's CGI. It's really fabulous to look at, and it's back. It's on Paramount Plus.
Wow.
And they called me this year to see if I would write an episode.
Oh, how cool.
So I did.
Oh, how fun. Oh,
so I did. I wrote an episode for this brand new season, and so that's cool.
Yeah, no, that's really a great thing to share because you took your comedy background and all your experience as a comedian, you converted it into being a writer, and that took you to sitcoms and animation shows. And then that led to producing. I mean, Monica, you've had an amazing career, but that wasn't enough. Then you went on.
No, we won an Emmy.
Yeah, you won an Emmy and you were nominated at the Golden Globes. I mean, you were rocketing your career and everything you put together. But I think what's amazing is then you were able to convert all that and put together your one-woman show, Not That Jewish.
Well, my one-woman show, I started in 2008. I got a phone call from my friend Rhonda Spinak, who had just formed this company called the Jewish Women's Theater. Not a company, a theater company, Jewish Women's Theater. And she said, she asked me if I'd be interested in writing and performing some original stories. But Rhonda, I'm not that Jewish. I whined. I whined. And she said, yes, you are. Just create from the heart. So I started writing a lot of stories for them, kind of Jewish-themed stories. In 2013, one of the board members and patrons commissioned me to write my one-woman show.
Wow.
Not that Jewish.
For the audience, that means you got paid to create the show. I got paid
to write my show, my play, and I wrote it, and it took a year of writing and notes and rewriting, but I basically took a lot of those stories that I had written for Jewish Women's Theater, and those became the basis for my one-woman show.
That's amazing.
But it's funny because the first thing I said to her is, "Look, I'm not that Jewish," and that became the title of my show. So,
but that's
that was
genius, because that opens up so many areas of conversation about the Jewish community. When you title it "Not That Jewish," I mean, that's a great way to open the door to so many concepts. I think that's brilliant. And the show did really well at the theater there in LA, but you took it to off Broadway, right?
Yeah, we did. It ran for 200 performances off Broadway. It was something. I had to move back to New York for a year, but it was great. It was an absolutely great experience.
Oh,
and now I do a show for Jewish organizations called For Mish, For Klempt, and For Blunget. And it's just a combination. I just did one Sunday for a temple in Santa Clarita. It was great. It was their first live show back after the pandemic, and it was great. It was so great to be live. Yeah, it was fun.
Oh, well, good for you. I mean, you've had, like I alluded to earlier, an amazing career. And one of the things I love about doing this podcast and talking to old friends like you is that what we were doing in the 80s was really new and fresh, and we were all kind of stumbling through figuring out what path and where comedy was going to work for us. And some of us had great success, like you, in taking that really difficult career. I mean, it's hard for men to be on a road comic, but it's doubly hard for women to be a road comic. And
why? Wait, why?
I just think that
why is it doubly hard for women to be on the road?
I think that because of sexism and the way that sub club owners, I won't say who, treated women. I mean, look at Mitzi. As much as she supported comedy, she still put the women in the belly room back in the attic,
right.
I mean, Mitzi Shore was a great promoter of comedy and created so many stars. And even she, had all the women start off in the belly room, which was really
it is
attic.
True. The women got, when it got tricky, when I was on the road and before I was a headliner and I was the middle act, and there were usually 2 bedrooms in the condo, and the headliner got one and the opener and the feature got the other one. But because I was a woman, and that's another thing. Let me tell you what a cool guy Larry Miller was. He gave up the bedroom, his own bedroom, because and gave it to me. I didn't ask him for it, but
no, Larry's
anyway.
a gentleman in every way.
Yeah. Oh, I have a funny condo story. It wasn't at your club. It was at some club, I think in Tucson or Tempe or someplace Arizona. I was dating a comic for a while. I will not say who it was, but he was my boyfriend for about 6 months. And then we broke up, and we found ourselves booked at the same club, on the same show, staying at the same condo. And the opening act, do you know Lee Allen? Did you know Lee Allen?
No, I don't think so, but...
he's a great guy. So I met him. We're now really good friends. But this is like late 80s, maybe late 80s, so early 90s. So I'm on the road and I meet Lee and we hit it off immediately, just laughing and having so much fun and writing material and everything. And the former boyfriend was on the bill. He was getting more and more sullen as the week went by. He was just moody and sort of angry. And we said, hey, we're going to the movies. Come on, you want to go? No, you have fun. I'll stay here. He was just, so finally I just said to him, look, you've got to get over it. I'm not sleeping with Lee. He said, I know, it's worse. You're writing with him.
That is such a comedian's point of view.
Isn't it? I mean, it was so funny. He goes, yeah, I know you're not sleeping with him. You're writing with him.
Oh, what an insult.
I know.
Oh, that's a great story. It is challenging, and I think for women on the road, and I really am impressed and excited about where you were able to take that, because you were a very successful comic and still are, but to be able to convert and to grow as an artist and lead that to writing and producing and doing your one woman show.
Oh, God.
And still out there hitting the stage boards and entertaining audiences. Monica, you've had an amazing career, and I'm just so thankful that you were willing to share this story with my audience.
Oh, God, I have so many fun memories of being at that club. You ran a really great club, and all the comics loved working for you, and you treated us so well, and we always had a great time. And I always worked with really great people up there. And it was fun being up there, too. I mean, Old Town was fun, and, it wasn't that big of a schlep. And, so it's my pleasure to do this.
Oh, well, thanks.
And I'm still doing stand-up. I'm back to doing stand-up, and it'll always be my first love, I do motivational speaking, and I do my play, and I do all that stuff, but stand-up will always be my, that's my first love.
That's the core, the nugget that everything grew from. I think that's amazing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I know you want to hear a little bit of great stand-up comedy. I happen to have some taped back from the days of Monica or Maylee Davis, who knows? But I'm going to share a little bit of that, but I did want to say one last time, thank you, Monica, for being on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to say thank you. Yes, Monica Piper, successful comedian who has really developed in something extra special. If you get a chance and you're on LA or New York and you see Not That Jewish on a billboard, go see her. She's performing at temples all over the country.
And clubs and stand-up.
And clubs. I'm just joking. So, ladies and gentlemen, sit back and enjoy some great stand-up
comedy. Oh, my God. What are you going to play, Scott?
Don't worry. It'll be good. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks, Monica. Here's a little comedy from Monica Piper. Again, Monica, thanks so much.
Thanks, Scott.
I love everything about... I love my breasts. I wish I didn't just have two. Oh, come on, wouldn't it be great to have a bunch of different sizes for all the things you needed to do? Little tiny ones for jogging and giant ones for estimates from mechanics. Yes. I love being a woman. I could list all the advantages, but I'll narrow it down to just one. Men, when you're with us and wondering if you'll get lucky, we already know. Not only am I little, but I'm shrinking. Seriously, it's wonderful aging, isn't it? I'm shrinking as we speak. I've always been 5 feet and 1/4 inch. That's my number. We have that number, don't we? At a certain point in our lives, we lock in that number. Leanne, what's your number? How tall are you? 5'7". You know, that's my number, 5 feet and a quarter inch. So I go for my checkup. I'm on the scale with the thing on my head, you know. And she goes, okay, 4'11". What? I cannot be 4'11". Well, would it help if we called it 59 inches? No! No, it would not. And I'm scared because I don't know if there's a time limit to this or if it's just going to keep happening until I'm a speck. A little speck with a microphone. So it's official. I'm officially under 5 feet tall. Isn't that freaky? And let me tell you, the world is a very different looking place from down here. Seriously, all week I've been saying hello to people's crotches. Potbellies aren't just annoying, they're actually in my way. Pretty soon they won't let me on a ride at Six Flags unless my son takes me. I love a good hotel. I take full advantage. I have to tell you, it's like, hello, this is Monica Piper. I'd like 12 more towels. That's right, 12. What? Why? I'm having a natural childbirth followed by a pool party. What are you, the FBI? They have to give you what you want, right? You know how much fun you could have at a 5-star hotel? Hello, room service. This is Monica Piper. I'd like a cheeseburger and a pony.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Stand-Up Comedy, Your Host and MC. For information on the show, merchandise, and our sponsors, or to send comments to Scott, visit our website at www.standupyourhostandmc.com. Look for more episodes soon and enjoy the world of stand-up comedy. Visit a comedy showroom near you.